The sponsor for this podcast is Blevins Insurance, and here's what their customers have to say. Great insurance rates and customer service. We'll search for the best possible rates through many insurance companies. For more information, go to blevinsinsurance.com or call 765-446-8999. Mindful Businesses with Vidya Iyer from the recording studios of Q1067, Lafayette, Indiana. In our podcast, we bring to you brands which are mindful in their practices and processes. Mindful manufacturing, simply put, is sustainable, social, economic, and environmental practices adopted by a business. Today, we have the pleasure to have with us Dave Mash, the co-founder of Palm Energy. Palm Energy has a proprietary blend of two plants, which makes biodegradable, environmentally friendly straws. Good morning, Dave. We are happy to have you with us on the podcast. So there's a lot of this talk about plastic straws. Different states are banning them and our seas are getting polluted with them. Tell me something more. Is this all just hype or is it all true? Give me some numbers.
Okay. Well, thank you, Vidya, for having me here. It's quite a nice, to be talking to you this morning. Yeah, what we're having that has been happening as trends in the past few years has been an environmental consciousness that, perhaps we need to consume and enjoy our lives, but also think of the less capable creatures that we live with, that we share the earth with, And so the more we pollute the environment, we actually affect those other life forms that cannot mitigate the situation. So as human beings, we would have the control to say, okay, where we are polluting, how can we have sustainable, non-pollutant materials that still enable us to enjoy our lives, but at the same time, we preserve the environment. And I think, the food packaging space is one of those areas where it is interesting that we've become very addictive to plastic. Plastic is a great invention that was invented by a Belgian scientist, who became an American. But we've become so addicted that everything in our lives, from the cars that we drive, is plastics, from utensils, from our beverage drinking, and indeed from the straws that we're talking about today, it's all plastic. So where does all that plastic go when we use it? You drink your bottle of water once, it's packaged in a plastic. You use it once. Where does that plastic go? You use your straw once, where does that plastic go? And those are the questions that I believe they are challenges and they create also economic opportunities. And this is where companies like ourselves, we find ourselves coming in to say, okay, so these are economic opportunities where we can mitigate a problem and provide a solution.
Awesome. So give me some numbers. How many straws are consumed in the United States alone and how many of them end up in the ocean?
This is interesting. Crazy numbers have been, reported all over, and it is easy. You can Google any one of the big media establishments, and you will hear figures of around 500 million plastic straws are consumed every day in the United States. Our own research, however, gave us, a more conservative figure, which is around 400 million. And
still, that's a lot.
That's still a lot,
Yes.
Because 400 million, you're looking at about 40 school buses loaded with straws every day, and so it's not much difference, 500 million straws and 400, it's more or less the same. And so, single-use plastic straws, you'd hear people advocating that, oh no, but they can be recycled. But it has been proven, at least for now, with the technology available, it is way more expensive to recycle a single-use plastic straw. So manufacturers will simply use fresh raw material, ethylene and, raw materials from petroleum to make a brand new straw than to try and recycle a very thin material that has been tainted with coloration, etc. It becomes more expensive to recycle.
Yeah.
So ultimately, those straws, they find their way into our garbage refill landfills where they do not decompose. Some of them, they find their way into our waterways. And unfortunately, marine life cannot differentiate between a colored plastic straw and a worm that would be dinner for it. So at times you can have your marine life consuming that, thinking, oh, that's lovely dinner, whereas actually it's a plastic that is indigestible, you know. Yeah.
So how many states are banned up to now? Do you have that information?
Yeah, there is some numbers that we've gathered. As it now, you have roughly about 22 states in the United States have cities, major cities and towns that have banned plastic straws. And to give you an example, West Lafayette, right here in Indiana, just I think in the last month or so, they banned straws.
Perfect.
And you have universities like Purdue, which is our largest university in the state, deciding that in its campuses, it's moving away from plastic straws. But that trend is happening all over. So you have in our conservative Indiana, you have that is happening, but also you have also in other major coastal cities and states, California, New York, you name it, the ban on plastic, in those cities is happening. So it's not yet at state level, but cities and towns are banning in those states.
How did you stumble upon this idea? You didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to disrupt the straw market with my palm straws.
It's innovation is amazing.
Did you have background in food technology?
No, I don't have a background in food technology. I'm a mechanical engineer, and then studied my my ordinary MBA masters with the University of Liverpool, in the UK. So as the noise about plastic straws gathered steam, it became one of those things that unconsciously, one is aware of the problem, around you, and at times you begin to, you stumble upon what would be potential solutions, and you begin to experiment with, as an entrepreneur, you begin to experiment with different combinations, and you stumble upon something that you say, oh, okay, this looks like it works. Is actually, it's a new use invention of existing materials and combining them. So we've been able to register it as a provisional patent. So we are patent pending on it.
Yes. So I was doing a little bit of research before this podcast, and I found there are many alternatives. There are steel straws, glass straws, bamboo straws, straws made out of, I don't know, different things. So how is your product different? Tell me a little bit more about your product.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, Vidya, that's a good question. Yes, there is many straws, different straws. One could argue you can shape any material into a tube.
Right. Like pasta.
Yes.
Yes.
You can take even mud, and shape it into a tube, The key issues is at what cost? Is such material able to render a product that would be competitively priced? Because you don't want a solution going into the market that is too expensive for consumers. This is when consumers begin to resist. You have consumer resistance when things are too expensive. So yes, there are steel straws, there is glass straws, etc. But we believe we're not serving that market, which is the fast food consumption market for single-use straws, where the product has to be affordable.
And also, I don't want somebody else's glass straw. I'm not sure how clean it is. If it was used like in a restaurant setting, it's okay if in my home.
Well,
for personal use.
Yeah, those are for personal use.
Yeah.
You talk of glass or steel from a hygiene perspective, they become personal use product, not a product that is used from one consumer to the next consumer, by 100 people in one day, know. So perhaps those would serve a different market. So if you want to have straws in your house, that you throw in your dishwasher, then of course, maybe you can have glass straws and, steel straws. But, in a restaurant, it's a whole different market.
Right. The sponsor for this podcast is Blevins Insurance. Blevins Insurance specializes in putting together packages for your home, auto, life, and business insurance needs. They are backed by multiple reputable insurance carriers. Blevins Insurance is great at identifying potential gaps within your current insurance policies. They are licensed to serve insurance in multiple states, including Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky, and Tennessee. For more information, go to blevinsinsurance.com, BLEVINS insurance.com. I also saw these bamboo straws, and I also seen pictures of your straw. Your straws look very smooth. They look really beautiful, I think. Whereas the bamboo ones were a little bit more, like pokey. And I think those were also probably for personal use because, you wouldn't be throwing away the bamboo. So they're also because they'll be far more expensive than your straws, So compare your straws to the paper straws in terms of how durable they are. Like right now, I was asking a few people, do they like straws? They said that the difficulty with it, they have a lot of difficulty with the paper straws. It's just like dissolve in your drink, on paper in your drink. Yeah. So tell me about why is your straw superior to the paper straws?
That's a great question. Ours is superior because of the method of production, the materials that we have combined. It's actually not 2 plants, but it's 3 plants, And when you combine these 3 plants, they bond together to give you a super waterproofing material, well shaped into a straw. But because they are plant materials and in their own right, singularly, they are also edible. In fact, they are FDA approved. So they will rapidly biodegrade in less than 21 days, just like your domestic food waste. So this is something that you won't have with paper. Paper is going to, you're going to take 45, maybe 60 days to biodegrade. But like you said, you do have the technological problems with paper. Perhaps it's still also a developing technology in that, they will fall apart, they will collapse when you're trying to drink your smoothie,
right.
And so they will soak, they will become very sticky and soggy, that feeling of sucking on a wet towel,
right.
And you don't want that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yes, there is paper straws, but we set out to say, let's create a product that to the greatest extent possible, it can mimic the usability of plastic minus the negatives of plastic and minus the drawbacks of paper. And we believe that is what we have created.
I wanted to mention that Palm Energy is a startup started at Purdue Foundry. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That is correct. And they are ready to launch in the near future. What will your brand be called? How will I distinguish Palm Energy straws with some other straws, which also are biodegradable?
Well, ours will simply be called a palm straw. And yes, it has been great to be associated with Purdue University Business Startup and Incubator and Accelerator program. And we were privileged to be enrolled with Purdue in that program. And that's where we developed our startup to where it is now. So it will be simple, palm straw. And of course, we'll have our own branding and our own packaging, etc. But those are still in the oven, not yet ready to, I know our competitors are listening. So
yes. So, there are also these stirrers. So will you be making stirrers? Because I think they're a nuisance.
Yes.
And actually, I never use stirrers because I just think they don't even do the job of stirring. Yeah. I always ask for a spoon and use it.
It is interesting, Vidya, because when we talk of the 400 million straws every day, that also includes your stirrers in your convenience gas stations where you're buying your coffee and you're using a plastic stirrer. And when you look at a plastic stirrer, it really just is a miniature straw, So it's part of those numbers we're talking about. And yes, our product is developed to cater for the broad spectrum of the market.
And so in terms of one thing that I found out about the paper straws, because we also in our family, we switched from plastic straw to paper straw. The paper straws are really expensive. So in terms of price point, can you tell me approximately, would they be the same price as paper straw?
Well, yeah, that is a good question. And we set out when we did our customer discovery and market research, one primary concern that we picked up from the restaurant market segment was the issue of price, So you had restaurants, give an example, in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I was there, I was talking to restaurants, and they said, look, we have switched into paper, but paper is between 5 to 10 times more expensive than plastic. And as you know, your fast food restaurant business is a very cutthroat competitive industry with fairly low margins, So a slight increase in an input cost, really does erode on their bottom line.
So give me some numbers. So how much do 100 plastic straws cost and how much do 100 paper straws cost? So people understand,
A plastic straw costs a fraction of a cent.
Yeah. So 100 probably costs $1 or something.
A plastic straw will cost you about, half a cent.
Okay.
Or 0.4%, but a paper straw will cost you around 2.5 cents. So that's 5 times more. And the 2.5 cents is really a fairly good conservative figure. Our product is competitive. We are aiming for the plastic. We are within that range of saying, here's a product that competes with the plastic or goes as near as possible to plastic. We may not be able to on one-on-one match plastic, but we are as near as possible.
And it's probably fully mechanized, the whole process, right? It's mostly machine made. There is no...
Yeah.
Okay, it's
Absolutely.
like a process.
Yeah.
And is it made in the United States or overseas?
We would make it here. First manufacturing base, is we are in Indiana startup. We want to be here. There's opportunities to be in other states, but we feel we would want to expand as an Indiana headquartered company and, be there to not only produce a product for the national market, but also our raw materials coming out of our farmers within the state. So there's a value chain that we feel we can add into our state.
Honestly, Dave, I was really surprised by that answer. I just assumed it was going to be made overseas. And my next follow-up question was yes, but, what about the shipping and the destruction to the environment by bringing all these boatloads or shiploads of straws. But, I'm happy that you're able to have the production done in Indiana.
Yeah.
And so the price point is comparable. Did you tell me about when you would be in the launching?
In the next number of months, we're working hard to achieve certain milestones that are related to the capital investment. And once those milestones are attained, then we're going into launch.
So, what do you tell the cynics who say, on an individual basis, you really cannot bring about impactful change in the environment. We need lobbyists, the government, and them to be on board. It doesn't matter if all the restaurants stop using plastic straws. So what is your response to them?
It is interesting. You have local authorities in towns and cities, city councils, passing bylaws, legislation banning straws. So obviously that has got an immediate impact insofar as achieving the goals of reducing pollution. It is by legislation. But one would also look at it and say, does it have to be driven by legislation? In our own consumption habits, ultimately we are rational human beings that as we find alternatives to substitute what we all know is a pollutant, by all means, let's, put in our efforts, our technology into that regardless of legislation. So what does that mean? What that means is we're not focusing on selling our product in the areas where plastic has been banned. We are also going into the states where it's not been banned, in the cities where it has not been banned, because we believe on its own, it is a compelling product for a problem that everyone accepts, is that we are addicted to plastic. No one can dispute that.
And the straws are so beautifully made. I really like them. And I was wondering, what would be the next thing, for you? Do you think you could develop this into, I'm not sure, a substitute for plastic for, I don't know, maybe the ties, the garbage ties, or, something else. I don't know how sturdy is it. Is it fairly resilient or something? Or
yeah, for the purpose of a drinking straw, we are happy with it. In terms of expanding into other products, that would be within the R&D, future R&D opportunities. How do you play around with the formulas and the mixing, and and how do you improve, etc. But now, the moment you talk about R&D, you're now talking of huge sums of investment money, and you ordinarily you'd want to do that out of your retained income,
right?
Out of your retained profits, and then you are investing your profits into enhancing products, into increasing the variation of product offerings, So, but that would be in the future for us.
All right, Dave, thank you so much for sharing all this information. We await your launch and hope we can bring you back as this successful company from Indiana, started at Purdue Foundry. So, listeners, we have with us Dave Mash, the founder of Palm Energy, of Palm Straws, which makes straws out of 2 proprietary materials. Thank you again. Thank you to Jim Stone of Q1067 FM, playing the best of yesterday and today in Lafayette, Indiana, for letting us use his recording studios for this episode. Thanks to Jim Stone and Ryan Martin, our technical editors. Music for this podcast is composed by Tatum Gale. From Brooklyn, we are in Indiana. Jim Stone is in Indiana. Our technical, another editor is in Philadelphia. Dave came down from Indianapolis. Just tells you how easy it is these days to work with people from all over. This is Vidya Iyer for Mindful Businesses.